Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another astrology video. This video, I want to give you a few of my thoughts and ideas about the upcoming cycle of Venus. So, Venus moves into Aries early this month, being February, but it is going to set off a longer cycle due to Venus's retrograde. So, there's been a lot of action in our Aries houses over the past 18 months, plus the Venus retrograde, and of course, Saturn and Neptune to come. So, the idea of this video is to start to think a little bit more broadly about our Aries houses and how we can use this retrograde for preparation for some of that. So before I get into the nuts and bolts of this week's video, I want to let you know, yes, it's February now, and I've just given out all my information for the month of February in the Golden Circle membership. If you would like to join my Golden Circle membership, where I share all my most in-depth descriptions of all of the aspects of the month, and it's a really good way to not only follow the astrology a month in advance, but also if you are a budding astrologer or you are learning astrology, it's also a great tool to help supercharge your studies and like widen your interpretations and deepen them as well. So, speaking of learning, I'm also going to be opening the Contemporary Astrology program for new students this week. I'll be uploading more details about that real soon. But if you are thinking about getting started in studying astrology, I'm going to be offering my year one program, and that's going to be starting in March. I'm still nutting out some of the finer details. So if you're keen to get started in learning astrology with me, I'd love to have you on board and join my group of students. It's a great, fun program, and the idea of the program is to not just teach you about astrology, but most importantly, to teach you how to do astrology. So I'll probably be posting in the community section here on YouTube once the links are ready to go, and I'll definitely have those ready for the next video. If you've got any questions about the program, do feel free to pop them in the comments below, or you can even contact me via my website, and the links there are below as well. So, as far as February goes, it's a big month. I mean, January felt like it lasted forever, but now February is here. It is a little bit of sort of a breath of fresh air because two of the big retrograde influences, Jupiter in Gemini and Mars in Cancer, go direct this month. So, firstly, we'll have Jupiter station direct at 11 degrees of Gemini about the 4th. So, that's winding up a retrograde phase that started, I think, in October. So, Jupiter's very curious, of course, in Gemini, but he's very curious this year because he covers a lot of distance. So, he's at 11 degrees now, and he, by the end of the year, he'll get as far as 25 Cancer. So that's a sign, a whole sign plus some by the end of the year. So Jupiter is going to be getting rather speedy once this station happens. Now, of course, the planet that everyone's been talking about and annoyed by is Mars in Cancer. So on the 24th, at least that's the Australian time, Mars is going to station direct at 17 degrees of Cancer, officially ending the retrograde. Though, do keep in mind that Mars is going to be sitting at 17 degrees for some time to come. I'll just find my ephemeris, but I must have left it in my kitchen. But do keep in mind that this 17 degrees that Mars will station at stays at that station point for 1 month. So if you've got a planet or a point at 17 degrees of Cancer, or the other cardinal signs being Aries, of course, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, you're really going to feel this particular station. Now, what's really unique about this particular station of Mars in Cancer is that Mars stations direct, and then Venus in Aries hits her shadow degree of 10 degrees of Aries. So Venus moves into Aries early in the month. and she will about the 4th of February, so sort of Jupiter stations, Venus changes signs. And by the time we get to the end of the month, about the 24th, when Mars stations, then Venus enters that pre-retrograde shadow. And about 6 days later, Mars hands the baton to Venus and says, "It's your turn, girlfriend, to go retrograde." So now we're thinking Venus in Aries. Okay, so Venus will station retrograde at 10 degrees of Aries around March 2, and then she will go back to Pisces, 24 degrees, and station April 12. She'll continue in those last few degrees of Pisces and then go back through Aries. So we do have sort of an extended double dip of Venus in Aries for this particular cycle. So, with that in mind, we're going to be honing in on our Aries house. So, I'm assuming that you know what house that is for you. And as we get closer to the retrograde, I will be getting a little bit more granular about what this Venus retrograde could mean through the houses. People seem to like those videos, so I'll definitely be doing it as well. So think about your Aries house and keep in mind that we've just had an 18-month nodal cycle through Aries. So the North Node has been in Aries from, I think it was about July of 2023, and it's been not even a month since that node exited our Aries house. So our Aries houses have already sort of been churned and shaken, not stirred by those eclipses, by the North Node going through there. Keeping in mind, we also have one last Aries eclipse to go. So when it comes to the nodes, obviously the nodes are no longer in Aries and Libra, they're in Pisces and Virgo, but wherever the nodes go, I tend to liken them to the idea of a washing machine. So those old school washing machines are the top loaders where you have the agitator inside. And so the nodes kind of are like the agitators of the machine that are churning up the water and cleansing as well. So anyway, sidebar there. So we've had the nodal journey and one final eclipse to wrap that up. That comes in April. Now, next month being March, we're going to have Neptune dip its feet in the fires of Aries from very late March, about March 30 through to about October 30. I believe the dates are a little bit foggy at this time of night. I've been reading for clients all day. So, our Aries houses are going to have in 2025 a dynamic, like this is at the personal, I'm not talking collective here, a dynamic of some initial fog and confusion. There is nothing about Neptune that speaks to clarity. We're going to be dipping our feet in the fires of fantasy, like my alliteration there, thank you. So there's going to be some fantasy, there's going to be some imagination and creativity and dreams and what if and all the sort of romanticizing of whatever that Aries house means for you. One thing that is for certain, there's going to be a lacking of traction in that part of the sky and in that part of your chart. So Aries is kind of all gangbusters and head first into everything, but Neptune is going to be head first into, I most certainly don't know where I'm going. So, dreams, imagination, creativity, a desire to escape, a desire to kind of enter a new realm, a new experience when it comes to that part of the sky. Neptune is going to say, if only you were inspired, if only you were kind of revved up, what could you achieve in that part of your life? Then, of course, by the time we come to May, we're going to have Saturn's entrance into the sign of Aries, and Saturn's going to be there until September. So we have that contradictory influence of Neptune that is like the endless, it's boundaryless, it's hard to define, lacks traction. It's all kind of steamy and misty. You can't see, right? Whereas Saturn is kind of like Neptune's like getting drunk. It's fun, let's be honest. Like, I mean, who doesn't like getting a little tipsy? And then before you know it, you might have got a little drunk. And then you wake up in the morning with that hot, cold, harsh reality of Saturn and your head hurts, Aries. I know I'm just kind of joking here, but I'm sure you get the gist. So wherever Saturn goes, there's going to be a pressure test of that part of the sky. There will be obstacles, there will be challenges, but this idea that, of course, diamonds are formed under pressure. One of the things I see with people who have Saturn and Aries as natives, they can be very quick to take on responsibility. So they don't really think long term. They don't really think about what's really involved. They'll just kind of jump in head first and like, yeah, I can do it. And so you add that to Neptune, and you may not necessarily be terribly sure about what responsibilities you're taking on. And then, of course, we've got the idea of Saturn in Aries being in the exaltation of the sun. And the sun most certainly doesn't like to be in Leo. So there can be that avoidance of responsibility or that stepping away from responsibility, which could really be a thing once we're kind of dealing with this Neptune influence. So obviously, I've kind of taken a few tangents there. I've introduced different planetary energies, but I guess point being is that there's a lot to come with this Aries house. There's going to be some confusion and fantasy, but also reality and clarity. So we could also see this as a combination as committing to a dream, committing to a goal, an aspiration that you've had, this desire to win, this desire to achieve, this desire to conquer, to sort of win, I guess, essentially, when you're talking about Aries, to be first. Now, wind all that back up to, this week, and we're going to have Venus move into this part of the sky, and she's going to have a retrograde phase. Venus in Aries, so I should say Venus retrograde, for my money, is probably one of the more difficult of all the retrogrades. I know we're kind of all done with Mars by this point, but Mars is kind of frustrating. It's like dragging your feet through mud. Obviously, my analogy of Mars in Cancer is a little bit like trying to wield a sword through water. It's very, very difficult to do that. It's very difficult to take actions when you're letting your feelings guide, whether you do something or not. So Mars in Cancer is handing the baton to Venus in Aries, and she is going to be taking charge of things. So look at your Aries house and think about, if you've got any natal planets there, if where Mars is in your birth chart being the ruler of that particular house. And maybe meditate on that a little bit and ask yourself if time, if money, if opportunity was no limit, what would you want out of that part of your life? And this may seem like a very blasé question or, yeah, whatever kind of question. But when you really think about it, it's a loaded question because I know myself always with clients, we might get to that point where I'm asking them, what do you really want out of this? What do you really desire? And people do struggle with that. So Venus in Aries moving retrograde, obviously not this month, but next. We're in the preparation phase for it this month. Where our Aries houses are, we are invited to upgrade desire there, upgrade our, what we want, which also may include that of which we don't, and also figuring out if I want X thing, but I also like Y thing, and figuring out those cross currents between them. So, say, for example, in my most recent astrology mentoring group, and yes, I will be running another one of those probably in April. what happens a lot with astrologers who are trying to kind of grow their businesses. Yeah, of course, I want to grow my business. I want to get more clients. I want to boost my income, all of these sorts of things. But then they struggle to do YouTube or they struggle to do social media or what have you. They don't want to be seen. Believe me, I have Saturn and Leo. I've been there. I don't like to be seen. But if you want to play the game, these are the rules. So we have to kind of get over our little things that block those desires, that block the thing. So for some people, let's say it's Venus, you're thinking about relationship. Venus likes to be in relationship. Aries, she sort of likes to go it alone. So maybe you are in a relationship and you feel very limited in it. Maybe you're single and you feel very limited in the singleness. Point being is that when Venus retrogrades, we are being invited to upgrade our desire, to recognize where we may have sacrificed some of our own needs, some of our own wants, some of our own desires for the sake or the happiness of someone else. Venus is the binder, the unifier, the connector. So she's going to do that a little bit to kind of keep all those things working smoothly. In Aries, she's less inclined to do that. She's more inclined to want to upset apple carts and put her own desires before everybody else's. That little part of the retrograde where she goes back through Pisces, it's a little bit of a different story. But this Venus retrograde really feels a little bit like the idea of flying. If you run into turbulence or there's problems, you've got to put your own mask on first, your own oxygen mask first, take care of yourself first, so you can then look after everybody else. Venus in Pisces. So the Venus retrograde in Pisces is going to, sorry, in Aries in particular, is going to be our opportunity to do a desire upgrade, figure out what we want, figure out what we don't, and how we can go about achieving that. And of course, that's where Neptune and eventually Saturn are going to come in and add some more complexity to this house. So before we all roll our eyes and go, oh my God, everything's ruined because of another retrograde, these retrogrades can be seen as gifts. They can be seen as opportunities because we really get to be up close and personal with these planets, which is what astronomically happens during the retrograde. So we get to really feel the energies of these particular planets and ask what do they want from us and what can we do in return. So anyway, that is the video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll have definitely more astrologically detailed things to say about Venus in Aries soon. As I said, the Golden Circle is open for February. I mean, you can join at any time. It's not as though I only open it once a month or at specialized times. Readings, of course, are always available. And then the Contemporary Astrology Program Year 1. And if you are in Year 1 already, Year 2 will be starting soon as well, which is always super exciting. And all the links for those will be in the show notes below. But the links to the Contemporary Astrology Program will be coming throughout next week. So I hope January was good for you and that the stars for February are looking great as well. All right.